We've had concerns with the effective needs programs really since I started here. The concern has been a disproportionate number of black male students identified and referred to those programs. And we have observed over time that similarly situated white males are more likely to be supported in their neighborhood school or school of enrollment.
So disproportionately black males are being sent to this program.
Yes.
What's happening once they're in this program?
Once they're in the program is, sometimes we refer to the school to prison pipeline, and that we see many times children going into the program in elementary school, continuing in middle school. Some of the children do make it to high school, but many times what we observe is sometimes they start getting in trouble as early as elementary school with whether it's the school calling the police or certainly in middle school. By the time they're in middle school, police have the authority to bring charges against the student. And then many times we see the student either drop out of school or end up in the youth correction facilities or youth correction system.
What needs to be done to fix it?
This was our reason for filing the systemic complaint. We first filed a complaint with U.S. Department of Education Office for Civil Rights, August 2021, and that was really after we felt as though we exhausted all remedies with Denver Public Schools. Over the years, there'd been promises that they were doing work, that they were working to improve the programs, to really address the issues in terms of disproportionality. Unfortunately, as new leaders came in or as leaders left, those changes weren't made. There was a statement that was, there was a program that they put together. It was called Project Disrupt, and that was the one where they did admit institutional racism. They provided training or information to school principals that outlined the issues, but then they shut down Project Disrupt. And that was around the time that the new superintendent had not arrived to Denver Public Schools. He was just coming on board, but some of the special education leadership had left, and those were the individuals who made the decision to shut down Project Disrupt. We forwarded the complaint to Office for Civil Rights. They accepted the complaint, but it took them some time to identify what, if any, issues they were going to investigate. There's a specific amount of time that you have to file a formal complaint with Colorado Department of Education. So in March, I filed the complaint with Colorado Department of Education. They completed their investigation and they issued their decision. There's still a complaint that's pending with Office for Civil Rights, and that they're investigating different issues other than the ones that were outlined in the state complaint. And we expect at some point a decision will be issued in relation to that, because that complaint speaks to disproportionality in terms of suspensions, restraints, and Office for Civil Rights is really able to make a decision or investigate the issues in terms of discrimination based on race.
Got it. So those are kind of a separate set of issues from what the state complaint decision kind of came out with.
Yes.
When you read the decision from the state, what did you think?
We were very pleased, and that the decision really focuses on students. It favors students, and we believe it's an appropriate decision.
What are the next steps?
The next steps is Denver Public Schools had to submit a corrective action plan, and the corrective action plan is typically we will comply with all the remedies that are outlined in the state complaint, and we do expect that the Denver Public Schools will comply with those remedies. What we hope for, though, is the district has an opportunity to do something more. They have an opportunity to take a deeper dive into really look at the systemic issues more carefully. You know, the state, one of the remedies was from Colorado Department of Education is Denver Public Schools is obligated to provide training to the 31 schools that house the Effective Needs Program. But when you look at students with disabilities, those students were referred by one of the 217 Denver Public Schools. We hope that the district will look at this as an opportunity to train all staff and to really look at addressing the systemic issue once and for all. Is the remedies go far, but we believe and we would encourage the district to maybe look at a different way of doing business. Denver Public Schools has always taken pride in the fact that they forward school autonomy, and there are some issues where school autonomy is appropriate in terms of when it comes to school activities, when it comes to their budget, but when it comes to different things such as Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, the consent decree, Civil Rights Act, there shouldn't be the autonomy. There should be continuity, and there should be a common way of really forwarding and meeting the individual needs of students.
You want to see the district go beyond just the basic minimum that's laid out in the corrective action plan?
Absolutely. We want the district, we have a new, Denver Public Schools has a new superintendent, and he really has an opportunity to move things forward in a different way than maybe other superintendents have. I'd look at Denver Public Schools as many times other school districts in the metro area look to Denver Public Schools. They look at their practices. When I think about this systemic complaint and the issues that were outlined here, you would find probably the same truth, whether it's Aurora Public Schools, Cherry Creek Public Schools, Arapahoe, Douglas, Jefferson, Adams County. You would probably find the same truth across the United States, where school districts where there is that institutional racism, where somehow the behavior that you observe with a student of color, that somehow it seems bigger and different. And our hope is certainly that we see change in the Denver Public Schools, but it would be wonderful if we saw that ripple effect.
We've talked about how Effective Needs has been a program that has been identified as an issue, has been identified as kind of contributing to the systemic institutionalized racism for several years now.
Yes.
And it's kind of come along to this before something, even the kind of very basics in the corrective action plan are being changed.
Yes.
Do you have hope that this will actually be the thing that changes the program?
We're hopeful that this will be the thing that changes the program. We don't want the district to simply provide a new name to the program and continue to forward the same practices. Denver Public Schools would probably assert, and they're probably correct, that some of the written procedures are appropriate. The issue is the way that they're being implemented, and the issue is even in the way that professional staff is trained. Denver Public Schools, the only training that's required if you're a special education teacher or a related service provider is how to do the electronic individualized education program. If you're a teacher in an Effective Needs program or a paraprofessional in an Effective Needs program, the only other training you're required to take is on how to physically restrain a student. There isn't that requirement that you look at positive behavior interventions, different ways to replace behavior, to identify a problem behavior, but to replace the behavior. When we look at the students who are over-identified for these programs, Some of those students have a medical diagnosis of autism. Some of them have a diagnosis of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Some of them have a diagnosis of a learning disability. It doesn't suggest that their needs are such that they're appropriately addressed in an effective needs program. We recognize that Denver Public Schools has a legal obligation to provide a continuum of services, and there are some students with significant mental health issues who do need different kinds of support, but the effective needs program is not designed to address those issues. And historically, we've seen where it's just an easy way to push kids out of neighborhood schools, and the program isn't culturally or linguistically appropriate or responsive.
Do you think that that could change?
I believe it could change with strong leadership, with well-trained staff. One of the things that I think you'll observe in the decision is that Colorado Department of Education, typically in any kind of order they issue, they might suggest that a school district provide training to their staff. In this decision, they said Colorado Department of Education will provide the training, and they will provide the training to the special education leadership, starting with the executive director for exceptional student services, her staff, and then certainly the school staff. So with this decision, it appeared that they weren't confident that they have the tools, the training, to be able to implement the remedies that were defined.
This is kind of a big picture question, but when you look at, where the effective needs program has been, what the decision is going to change, and what you hope the district will do as well, how do you feel about the future of the kids who are in this program?
So for the kids in the program is, I would hope that there's careful thought about whether they continue to need to be educated in that kind of a school setting. What we hope for is that students are educated in the least restrictive environment, starting with their neighborhood school. There are students where in order to participate in general education instruction, they may need adult support, a trained adult. In my perfect world is many kids would start off with just receiving services in their neighborhood school, but if they needed something more, maybe trying adult support from a behavior coach, where it's someone where in the moment, if there's a behavior, they can coach the student through that to think about different ways to approach the situation, rather than removing the student, putting them in a separate classroom where you have 12 other males that have kind of the same behaviors. In a perfect world, kids would be with typical peers where there would be many, many different kinds of behavior models.
You've interacted with some of the parents, some of the families
Yes.
who have been affected by this. What is the emotion that comes with that?
Is the emotion that comes with that, sometimes parents will, they will allow their child to be assigned to an effective needs program, and that sometimes their experience has been that in the neighborhood school, their child is sent home over and over again. Sometimes we see what we refer to as soft suspensions, where they'll call the parent up and they'll say, John has, we're seeing a lot of behaviors today. We'd like for you to pick him up. If you pick him up, we won't suspend him. We won't put it on his permanent record. And the parent, over and over again, picks their child up from school. I worked with a parent last year where her child was sent home 70 different days. And The school didn't record it as a suspension, but it was very clear to her that her student wasn't welcome back there. When it comes to the point where they're looking at the student and looking at what they would refer to as least restrictive environment, many times the parent will welcome the chance for their child to go to a different school, just with the hope that they won't be sending them home over and over again. And that when your child is sent home 70 days, there's no way you can make progress in reading, writing, and arithmetic. And also, too, for many students, home is a safe place. For many kids, it really feels very comfortable to be sent home rather than struggling with academics in a school setting where you've missed a great deal of the instruction.
So it was viewed as a place of hope for a lot of families, of a way to say, okay, great, this is what my kid needs. How did it turn out?
Is for many families is certainly there was the disappointment, and for many families, I don't know that as we talked to families that they felt as though that's what their child needed, but rather it was, my child is not welcome at my neighborhood school, and so maybe the next school will welcome them. Maybe this program, this effective needs program, they'll be successful. They'll feel like they're a welcome member of the school community. And really, as we've worked with families, we've seen the opposite. And that again, the parents talk about their child being sent home. They talk about new and different behaviors. They talk about safety and security being called to the campus. They talk about teachers putting their hands on their child, physically restraining their child. And the parents, certainly are concerned that what's going to happen to their child. Many times, particularly with parents of black and brown students, many times they talk about early on, I'm so concerned about that school to prison pipeline. Where will my child end up? Denver Public Schools graduation rates for students with disabilities is low, but the lowest is in terms of students who are warehoused essentially in the effective needs program, is when or if the students do make it to high school, so many of them never graduate.
So, it's viewed, and I just have two more questions for you. It's viewed as kind of like, okay, maybe this will help. Maybe this will be the next step for my child. And you've seen from working with parents, they've been disappointed. It's not been that. It's not been what it needs to be.
It hasn't been that. Yeah, we see with families where they'll reach out to Advocacy Denver, and it's like, my child went into this program when they were 5 or when they were 6 years old, and now they're 8, 10, 14 years old, and we haven't seen, my child make academic progress. We haven't seen where they've earned different privileges to be with typical peers.
It's got to be frustrating.
It is frustrating. And sometimes, when we filed this complaint, we did not provide the names of any children of any families, and it was for good reason. This is probably one of the topics where many times parents are concerned about speaking up. There's a certain level of fear. They don't want, they're concerned that someone might retaliate against their child. Their child's already seen as a problem student, and they don't want to draw any more attention to their child or to their family. And that we find that these are children that come from loving homes. These are kids that are average or above average intelligence. Sometimes we go back to the core in terms of, what is the issue? Is it that the child was bored in school? Is it that the public school system forwards practices that aren't culturally responsive? And the Denver Public Schools admits, and we agree, that institutional racism is obvious. It's obvious in the 217 Denver Public Schools.